All right, good day, everybody. This is Ryan Erickson and Joey Aurora on the line with you. This is a training video geared towards walking you through the MOU or Memorandum of Understanding. It's a required document for your Phase 2 proposal, but there's not a lot of instructions that go with it. So what Joey and I want to do is simply walk you through the process. You've been emailed the MOU template, but if you ever get lost, here's a good way to find it.
So the good news is it's going to be available on the AFWorks website, and it'll be available on your cohort platform as well.
Correct. Within Union and what Joey is alluding to, going to the AFWorks website, scroll over to 4 industries, scroll down to special separate topics. And then once you're there, scroll down again, do a lot of scrolling down to get to Memorandum of Understanding template. From there, it's going to download, and I'll open it up. And for everybody's reference, the Phase 2 proposals for this round, due to the contracts being delayed getting out, we acknowledge that, putting a time constraint on you. So we are extending the Phase 2 proposals to 8 November. So we had a little bit extra time should you need it. So we took that into account. So wanted to pass that on to you before we go down the MOU. All right. Like I said earlier, the MOU is a Memorandum of Understanding. And if you remember what we talked about in the onboarding video, this is nothing more than an agreement between the Air Force and your company. It's got a lot of yellow on it. So the yellow is nothing more than a highlighted section to capture your attention, to let you know that needs to be updated before you submit. Myself included, we get wrapped around at looking at all the holes that need to be filled. I want to reassure you that those will come. What you want to do first is obviously understand the problem with the Air Force customer and start with back to front with this sucker. What I mean by that is the milestones. Go look at the milestones first. Begin your conversation with your Air Force customer on what the actual end state needs to look like, what the problem solution needs to be. That's where you want to go with your last task. From there, you want to work backwards in determining what steps on your company, within your company, that you need to take to get to that last step. Okay, so working through the milestones is going to help cage whatever else needs to be filled in within the MOU. Joey, anything to add?
You'll also notice that in section 1 at the top of this MOU, that this is the place to add in a little bit about the Air Force problem. So is interest from the Air Force customer and the company. And part 2 here, it says this Air Force customer has a specific need in this area, and here's where you describe the mission, need, and impact. So that's where you work with the Air Force customer to define that. You define, hey, sort of the timelines that you need and what your goals are and what the impact of the work is. And that's what flows into your deliverables there, right? You have an end state that you want to get to with the Air Force customer, and this is providing that overall information on what that is. So a lot of the different blanks you'll see throughout this MOU, a lot of those are, hey, just the name of the Air Force customer, some basic information about your SBIR contract, and then what are you actually accomplishing with that Air Force customer? What are you prototyping? What are you testing? What are you proving out with that customer that can happen? And that's the basic information you need in the MOU tied to those milestones as well.
Great. Within the milestones, when you're working with your customer, pencil next to it who is going to need to be a part of that effort. For instance, if I needed to deliver 3 adapted commercial widgets, who else aside from your company needs to be a part of that effort? That's going to help determine what other stakeholders need to be a part of this Phase 2 adaptation. So as Joey alluded to up here in the first 3 paragraphs, first two paragraphs, it's hitting hard on the customer, what their mission is and what their problem is. Now we start to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're looking for in the evaluation process. So we'll start with paragraph 3. 1 and 2, Joey already hit. We'll hit with paragraph 3. If the phase 2 award is made, we expect this project to be executed from X to X. We want the government to understand the timeline that you need to execute is replicated in the MOU. So we want to make sure your proposal that you're going to submit within your phase 2 is matched up with the government's expectations. Additionally, when we look at matching funds, if the government, this is only for government investment, if the government intends to invest in your phase 2 proposal, this is where we need to see it annotated. They will have 90 days post phase 2 award to have the money, what we call MIPR, and they're familiar with it, MIPR, MIPR it over to AFRL so we can add to your contract. A great way to
have a key point of contact for where your matching fund should go to and how they're sending that money over. It's basically just how we wire transfer money inside of the Air Forces through this process.
Great. A good way to determine, a good way to gauge your messaging, a good way to frame the conversation to determine if funds matching are needed is back to those milestones. You expect a $750,000 baseline SBIR phase 2 award. Should you be awarded a phase 2 contract? Now, if the results that the government wants exceeds that $750K, then that's a good leverage for you to use from your milestones to say, hey, we need another 200,000, just an example, in order for us to get you the critical requirements that you want. Scrolling down. Paragraph 5. If the phase 2 award is made, the customer will be interested in negotiating a what we call a CRADA, Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, or other appropriate agreement with the SBIR company. All that is, don't get wrapped around this. It's not a requirement for you to submit with your phase 2 proposal. A CRADA is just nothing more than an expanded MOU. Should the unit want to go down that road with you, you can enter a CRADA with them, and it just outlines further roles and responsibilities, expectations between you and that unit. But it's not required, but it is an option that we want to make sure you guys are tracking, that some commanders may feel more comfortable entering an expanded MOU or CRADA, excuse me, as you start to develop your phase 2. Paragraph 6. If the phase 2 project is successful and our mission needs remain unmet, meaning that your adaptation was great, but the commander still cannot execute his or her mission as they would want, they need to bring your phase 2 adaptation to scale. That's what it's talking about, phase 3 transitions in here. Who from the Air Force side or government side would be that belly button, aka contracting office, that you would work with in bringing this to scale. This is just a discussion right now. We're not looking for hard numbers assigned to it, but we do want to know that that discussion has been captured between you and the customer. Who is going to bring that to scale once your phase 2 is complete? Phase 3 is our mission here within SBIR. We want to get your solution first met, that it meets the problem statement that we have in the Air Force, but more importantly, we want to make sure it gets scaled once it's met. So paragraph 6 captures that. Paragraph 7 is nothing more than the government agreeing with your milestones that you propose down below. I'm scrolling down. Sorry for bouncing all over the place, but my ADD is kicking in. So we want to make sure that the government is fully tracking on the milestones you are submitting. Paragraph 8 expands upon who is actually going to be both the TPOCs, technical points of contact, and alternating end user contracting and other staff functions as necessary. This is where you want to highlight or bring into paragraph 8 all those additional personnel you identified within your milestones after discussing with the customer. For instance, if I need civil engineering to be a part of one of my deliverables, then that's going to be a staff function that I want to annotate on the MOU. Break it down for you real quick. Lead POC, that's who we're going, excuse me, that's who we're going to contact to make sure your phase 2 is going as planned. We need someone that is easily accessible throughout your phase 2. We understand that people change from time to time within the Air Force, but starting off, who is going to be that person we can rely on? If they don't answer the phone, who are we calling next? That's the alternate POC. End user is the guy or gal that's benefiting from the proposal, or it can be a specific unit, meaning like the 182nd Fighter Squadron or Captain Smith at 182nd Fighter Wing. Contracting, that goes back to paragraph 6. Contracting office up there, we need a contracting office POC identified here that we can reach out to. For these areas, we want name, rank, or title, email, and phone number. The staff functions, go ahead.
The thing that you want to also consider here are who are the other folks here that might help scale this project. Right, so you have your Air Force customer, POC there, but who else is there on the transition side? So who's going to be buying this after the prototype project? Have you, or has the Air Force customer communicated with them about following this project and seeing, hey, does it meet their milestones and their criteria for buying this in the future? So that's something, as we have mentioned earlier in the MOU, might be something else you consider putting in here as well. And sometimes there's resistance from contracting or some of the staff functions below about this MOU. So I wanted to highlight that this has been cleared by the highest levels of the Air Force Legal Counsel. And so if you run into any of the barriers where your Air Force POCs or the staff functions are hesitant to sign this MOU, please have them reach out to us and we will clarify that it is all cleared and ready to go.
Continuing with staff functions, finance. We need the same contact information if the government is going to invest in your proposal. That will come from a finance section. So we need name, rank, email, phone number for that personnel within the finance section. That will, like Joey simplified, wire the money to the SBIR office so we can match for your phase 2. Commander, legal, information assurance, cybersecurity, engineering, etc. are added there in case the Air Force customer wants those offices included with concurrence for this MOU. Those are only as applicable, so if necessary, have those filled out with the Air Force customer. All right. Some companies may get traction with more than one unit. That is great. That's something we encourage, but how do you annotate that on one MOU? I didn't message that well. We only need one consolidated MOU. What I mean by that is you can't have more than one set of milestones within your phase 2. Your phase 2 is a specific adaptation, and you can only do it one way within the SBIR program. Can that one way affect more than one user, customer? Yes. How you want to annotate that is right here. 2 ways. Have the alternate POC be someone from the other unit, or insert additional stakeholders down here as necessary. So if you're working with the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, etc., or other units that are not your quote-unquote lead, have them annotated here. Last but not least, before you submit your phase 2 proposal, this must be signed. It can be wet signature, digital. We accept either. And we leave that up to the customer on determining which person needs to sign based on their organization. We don't dictate who signs it. We leave that up to the units, but make sure it is signed. If it's unsigned, it can disqualify you from receiving a phase 2. Joey, anything to add?
So make sure that when you do have this document signed, that it does get uploaded to your final phase 2 application. And when it is uploaded, that the signature does not get skipped. So be sure to watch out for that. And make sure that you are communicating kindly and respectfully and professionally to your Air Force counterparts regarding requesting this signature. This is something they're working on with you. It is not something that they have to do. And so being respectful and kind and working with your Air Force customer is important. And the other thing to consider is getting this done maybe a week or 2 early, if possible, before your phase 2 applications are due, so you're not rushing at the last moment to get it completed. And at the end of the day, if you do not get a MOU signed by the time the phase 2 application is due, you could always apply for a direct to phase 2 if that's available in future rounds.
We are here for you to answer any questions. We also will be standing up a DoD only discussion call. Much like we do our weekly Q&A sessions, we will gear that towards DoD members only, understanding that not everybody in the Department of Defense is well aware of the Open Topic SBIR program, which is awesome. So we want to make sure that there are no apprehensions on their part, or if they have any questions, that they get answered in a timely manner. Reach out to us via Union if you have any additional questions on this. We have our Friday calls, and expect a one-pager that you can disseminate to these units you're starting to open doors with for them to do the same. Thank you for your time, and hope everybody's having a good time with their SBIR experience. We're trying to make it easy and for you guys to execute, but thank you for bearing with us with the hiccups with the contracts, and we are working through those.
Thanks for your patience. We're trying to share what we can and make this happen. Hopefully this video is educational about the MOU, and let us know if you have any questions on our Friday calls.
See ya.